everyone. It looks like we have about 74, 75 attendees right now, so welcome to you all. I am Jantz. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Geography and Earth Science, and I'm also the director of the Center for Land Use and Sustainability.
And I am Russ Hedberg, and I am faculty also in the Department of Geography and Earth Science at Shippensburg, and I am the university's sustainability coordinator. I'm glad to see so many people here in attendance.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and we want to wish you a happy Earth Day. As you all know, it's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and while obviously every day is Earth Day, today is a great day to look back and see how much we've accomplished over the last 50 years, and also to recommit to another 50 years of stewardship of the Earth. And on that note, we are really excited to share with you that Shippensburg University will be signing the campus climate commitment, which will take our campus and our community onto on a path towards carbon neutrality and more resilient communities. So the agenda for today is we're going to have a short video to share with everyone that highlights the campus climate commitment. And then after that video, we'll have a Q&A with several guests. We have Cindy Dunn, who's the secretary of the DCNR. We have Katie Hess, who is the director of the South Mountain Partnership. And DCNR and the South Mountain Partnership are our community partners as we launch into this new era of climate adaptation and mitigation. And then we'll also be joined by Antonia Price, who's the project manager for the Center for Land Use and Sustainability. She'll be moderating the Q&A. So as you all can see, attendees have their videos and microphones turned off, but we do really want you to participate. So please use the Q&A to put in your thoughts, your comments, your questions. We'll be responding to those live or in chat. So please chime in, and as Russ will wrap up at the end, this is just the beginning of a process where we need your participation moving forward. So I am going to launch the video. Hopefully this will go smoothly. Just give me 1 minute.
And I want to encourage you, while Claire is getting this, this video queued up, when we get into the panel and we have an opportunity for questions, please don't feel like your question isn't a good question. Ask any question, even if you feel like it's an obvious one, even if you feel like lots of people are going to ask it, ask. Please participate. This is a community event and we want it to be that way. So here we go with the video. Hi, everybody. My name is Russ Hedberg, and I'm a professor in the Department of Geography and Earth Science here at Shippensburg University. And I am also our university's sustainability coordinator. And I'm very excited for what we are committing to today of signing a climate leadership commitment. And so what that is a commitment where the university joins with other universities across the United States in committing to moving toward a carbon neutral operation at our university, where we are no longer contributing to the emissions of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane that are driving our planet toward unsustainable futures. And we're taking this step because we recognize that all of us have a responsibility to act, and all of us have a responsibility to model what it means to move toward a more sustainable future.
The Center for Land Use and Sustainability works really closely with a whole set of community partners in South Central Pennsylvania and beyond. And as part of our work with the climate commitment, we are going to be partnering with the South Mountain Partnership, DCNR, and Michoud State Forest to move our local community in South Central Pennsylvania towards climate resilience. So we'll be working with the climate resilience and adaptation plan to help our whole community on campus and beyond to be carbon neutral and to be ready to adapt to and mitigate the impacts of climate change.
I'm Roy Brubaker. I'm the district forester for Michoud State Forest. The value of the climate change partnership between DCNR and Shippensburg University, the way that partnership benefits us at the local level as forest managers and a forest management team is really about data collection, knowledge transfer, the engagement of smart minds and people who care about the living systems that we're trying to manage for current and future generations here on the Michoud. So some of the values I see are really basically continuing the kind of partnership that the Michoud and the Bureau of Forestry and DCNR has had with Shippensburg over the last several decades of managing some of the rare plants, some of the rare community types, recreational aspects, land change aspects with various professors, which is really what forestry is all about. You can't manage a forest tree by tree or even stand by stand. You have to understand it within a landscape context. So the role that CLUS and the Shippensburg departments have played to sort of create this interdisciplinary approach to understanding our forests is really, really valuable.
Well, I am Katie Hess, Director of the South Mountain Partnership. The South Mountain Partnership is one of Pennsylvania's 8 conservation landscape initiatives. And what this means for us is that we can bring our network of over 40 partners from throughout the region to the table to have a dialogue about climate change in the region and how we can work together to address that. And perhaps most importantly, this means that we can start conversations between our municipalities, counties, and other stakeholders in the region to develop strategies as a region that make us stronger and more competitive.
Cindy Adams Dunn. I'm the Secretary of Pennsylvania's Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. I'm also a proud alum of Shippensburg University. We have a long-standing partnership with Shippensburg University that's really deep and substantive. And specifically in the South Mountain landscape, we've been able to work with Shippensburg University with a number of the programs and professors where Shippensburg's research and data really help support the South Mountain initiative, and specifically our choosing of the South Mountain landscape for our climate pilot. We at DCNR they're doing a climate mitigation and adaptation plan across the Commonwealth. But we chose the South Mountain specifically because we had such a good research and university partner at Shippensburg. That allowed us to really add the academic side to the equation in the broad South Mountain partnership. And it's an interesting microcosm of what climate change is going to bring to the rest of Pennsylvania and the rest of the Northeast. It's really going to be incumbent on colleges and universities to lead the way on climate. I've been proud of Shippensburg throughout my career, but I'm particularly proud now that Shippensburg is signing this climate agreement. I think it speaks to the vision and leadership at Shippensburg, and it speaks to the forward direction Shippensburg and the students are moving today.
I'm proud to officially make this commitment today to our future by signing the Second Nature President's Climate Leadership Commitment. With my signature, Shippensburg University joins in leading the way to shaping a sustainable society. At Shippensburg University, we are blessed with students and faculty who make the work of sustainability their teaching and learning, research and career focus, and our Center for Land Use and Sustainability is the catalyst for connecting with important community partners and projects. Together, we commit to taking leadership in our community to create a more sustainable and positive future.
Thank you so much for all of your inspirational words, Secretary Dunn and Katie Hess, the Director of the South Mountain Partnership, Dr. Hedberg, Dr. Jantz. I am just so excited to be part of this initiative, and thank you all for being here with us today, but also just for sharing your connection to this initiative. Looks like we're all here. So to start us off, Cindy, would you be willing to share with us what this commitment means to DCNR? And sorry, before you start, I wanted to remind our audience that you can submit questions using the Q&A, and then we will get to your questions.
Well, when we launched the climate initiative in DCNR, we looked around this vast state for the best place to really model and pilot a climate initiative. And we chose South Mountain. And a key ingredient in our choosing of South Mountain was Shippensburg University. The various programs and disciplines there had been a strong partner through the South Mountain Partnership and were united with us. They were doing research. We knew the professors, we knew their commitment to that landscape, and we knew we had a strong partner because without that, we didn't have the scientific and technical capability of measuring and really learning everything we'd have to learn as we roll forward on this pilot. We're committed to doing climate action statewide, but it's important that we measure and really understand the impact. Also, the South Mountain system is very interesting. It's a northern terminus of the Blue Ridge. We think about the Great Smoky Mountains. That ridge extends all the way into Pennsylvania and is the South Mountain, and that's actually where it ends at the northern end of the South Mountain near Dillsburg. So it's a very fascinating landscape, and no university knows it better than Shippensburg with the long years of research there. So it was quite a natural fit.
Thank you. That's we're very excited to have this commitment from DCNR. So thank you. And Katie, I'm hoping that you can tell us what this climate commitment means to the South Mountain Partnership and how maybe you can explain to our audience that is not familiar with the South Mountain Partnership, how it connects to DCNR. Oh, and you are muted, so just a moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the South Mountain Partnership is one of Pennsylvania's 8 conservation landscape initiatives. And we are going on 11 years old. And we have been developing this partnership through a process that is heavily weighted in community discussion about what we want the future of this landscape to be, how it functions, how sustainable it is, what it looks like, how do we balance our heritage and our history with welcoming new people and technology into the fray, and how do we balance all of those things together. And so this is sort of a hallmark of the Conservation Landscape Initiative through DCNR. Each one has taken on its own qualities, and this is just how we evolved based on our local conversations and our local culture and our partners. And so what this means for us is that we can have a regional conversation about climate change and have a framework through which to move forward the conversation and actions. We can bring, so we operate in Adams, Cumberland, Franklin, and York counties. And those planning departments actually serve on our leadership committee that provides strategic direction for us. And so we're very lucky that we can bring them to the table and that we can, through these community conversations, think about how we want to move forward. What support do they need? How can we be more competitive to bringing resources to this region that they need to get these things done and to assist the municipalities in implementing climate change adaptation strategies that they need.
Great, thank you. So we have a question from the audience, and that is for all of you, and so I'm not sure who would like to start. Given that we are all dealing with COVID-19 at this time, why is it so important for the agreement to happen now?
Well, I'd be happy to take a first crack at that. And I think what I want to point to is that this is a climate leadership commitment. And I think the definition of being a leader is that you recognize the immediate challenge and deal with it compassionately and comprehensively, which I think Shippensburg has done a great job with, given the sudden need for changes that arose with this pandemic. But being a leader also means that you don't let that distract you from successfully guiding your institution and your community forward to the next challenge. And there is no greater challenge than climate change for our communities, for our economy, for education, for our nation. I could go on and on listing scales of which this is crucial that we not let this go because we have something else to deal with. And of course, we will continue to deal with the issues of the pandemic as they emerge, but we will also be making the really important decisions that will set us on a good footing for the future, for our university and for our region. So I think that's why we're not stopping. We're committing to being leaders.
Thanks, Russ. That was spot on, and I think a couple other things that we can add on to that. First of all, we have seen some positive effects of our need right now to stay at home. So we've seen a decrease in fossil fuel emissions. We've seen cleaner water and cleaner air. So I think that that's hopeful. It means that we can make a difference through behavioral changes that will, lead to a more sustainable future for everyone.
I would agree with everything that's been said. And when you think about it, the first Earth Day came out of a time of crisis. The environmental crisis was, at the time, before the 1970s, was truly remarkable. Rivers were burning, big oil spills, darkened skies, just an incredible, visible environmental damage. And from this disaster came, the first Earth Day. When you think about economic declines, from the Great Depression came the Civilian Conservation Corps. People doubled down on their commitment to the outdoors and to nature. And what we're seeing at DCNR, interestingly, during this COVID crisis, is people are connecting more than ever to the outdoors. We've actually seen record-breaking attendance in the public lands. And of course, we're encouraging people to really respect social distance and to take a lot of precautions, which we list in our communications and on signage. But the reality is people are connecting more with the earth right now during a crisis than we usually see. We also see people understanding the role of science. People are searching for answers. They're concerned about their own health and well-being and that of their loved ones. And more than ever, they're understanding how important science is. And they're also understanding how important commitment at a global level is. All these lessons translate very well to the lessons of Earth Day. And I think that, I'm not going to call it a silver lining because everything about this pandemic is bad, but people's awareness has been heightened as a result. Thank you.
And I'll chime in. I think that this is necessary for this region now because as the regional facilitator of conversations about what we want for the future of this landscape, I often find in my conversations with partners that many of them feel like this region is sort of at a tipping point. We're under immense development pressure from the Interstate 81 corridor. We're also under immense development pressure up out of Maryland and the Baltimore, DC area on the east side of the South Mountain. And so it's so important to continue to balance that development with a plan for sustainability and for keeping the landscape beautiful and healthy, keeping the water clean, the air clean and breathable. We know how important that is now. So there's no better time. And like Secretary Dunn referenced, Pennsylvania has been a leader in conservation always. The CCC actually was developed through a model created in Pennsylvania and deployed in Pennsylvania first. And so we just need to get back in touch with our roots here, I believe, and we'll strike that good balance once again.
Thank you. And we had a related question about COVID-19. And the question was how we can learn from the government response and how the government is mobilized during COVID-19 and apply similar lessons to the climate change problem.
I'll jump in since I'm from the government. You'll notice if you watch Governor Wolf and Dr. Rachel Levin's pretty much daily press briefings, there's a strong data component, just reporting the facts. At the time of crisis, people want to know the facts, whether, regardless of, whether they're good, bad, scary, or encouraging. So, and then there's the expression of uncertainty where there's uncertainty. The governor has never been afraid to say this is a novel coronavirus, it's new. So I think the honesty of relaying, what's known and what's not known, and then expression of what's needed. And that's why, like for instance, in terms of like getting back to normalcy, the governor and Dr. Levine have been very clear on there'll be a new normal. This we're learning as we go. We're making, evaluating based on science and making the best decisions we can make, and then doing what we call adaptive management. Adjust as you learn more. So being willing to adjust as you learn more and not just hang on to a fact, that may have seemed like a fact from 3 months ago. You've got to do adaptive management and really engage with the newest information that you have and move forward. So that's a good, that's a good analogy with the kind of science that's required for climate change. We got to see how the Earth is going to respond to the various mitigation and resiliency measures.
I'll piggyback off of that. Getting to the point about data-driven decisions, that's another hallmark of the conversations that we have to move forward the needs of the South Mountain region. And again, we can look back into our history here regionally and see that playing out. We just hosted on Monday an online seminar with the Pennsylvania Forestry Association, the Sustainable Forest Initiative, all of the regional parks and forest friends groups. And we talked about the Environmental Rights Amendment to the Pennsylvania Constitution in 1970, which was, 50 years ago. So that created, for the first time in the United States at that time, an environmental civil rights acknowledgement. And that has been playing out over the landscape here and throughout Pennsylvania. It was our state who made those changes, who acknowledged that, at one time coal and timber companies had a huge advantage when it came to how the state was run. And this was a gradual dialing back to get back into a balance. And we see reminders of that all over the landscape. And again, that's our heritage. And that's another way that government can use empathy and data to respond and to strike that balance.
And I think if I could just draw a quick analogy here between the COVID-19 pandemic and what we can do when we think about responding to climate change, I think there's some great lessons. That was such a great question. First, don't wait. Don't wait to respond. Use the data, use the science, rally your communities, and start early. The things that we've had to do in response to this pandemic have been painful for a lot of people, whether it's because of your health or because of the way that it's affected your income or your family situation. Some of that was going to be inevitable, but some of it was because we waited. And our adaptation to climate change, our response to make our communities resilient, doesn't have to be painful. It can be positive. We can make stronger communities. We can make more resilient economies. We can make life better for people while we also make it better for the Earth system by responding to climate change. And I think that waiting and putting it off would be detrimental. It would only make it harder. So don't wait. I think that's another great lesson that we can learn from our response to the pandemic versus our response to climate change. Don't wait.
Thank you. Thank you all for your responses. And I would like to welcome President Carter. Thank you so much for joining us today. We started off and we gave Cindy and Katie a few moments to talk about what this commitment means to DCNR and to the South Mountain Partnership. And I'm hoping that you might share what this commitment means to Shippensburg University.
Sure. First, I want to thank Secretary Dunn and Katie for joining us today and for partnering with us on this very important commitment. This is something that I know is important, not just to the university, but as a leader, and I know you talked a little bit about leadership earlier, because we really are responsible to leave the earth in a place where future generations can continue to use it. And we're on course to not be able to do that well. And as a leader in higher education, training and educating future generations so that they can be leaders is really important. But most importantly, how we treat our environment it really just speaks volumes to how we care about one another. And so drawing that parallel between how we treat the environment and what we're doing now for COVID-19 in caring for one another and caring for the world around us, I think it's all interconnected. And so the question about why now, well, as those of you who are on the screen, you know this has been in the works for quite a while. We waited until Earth Week because we really wanted to seize upon that opportunity. But this is a commitment the university has been very serious about making because it's the right thing for us to do. It's the right message for us to send to our region. It's the right message for us to send to our students, that we care about them, we care about their future, and we care about the world that we're leaving to them as they go off to become the next generation of leaders. So thank you all for the work that you're doing. This is so important and vital to the university.
Well, thank you. And we do have a related question about that leadership role. And the question is, as leaders, how do you plan to persuade others to recognize the importance and to also take action?
Well, can I jump in on that? I was really excited to hear how many students were on this call, and this is especially to the students. The first Earth Day was organized and led by students. And as you well know, a lot of climate action is being led internationally by young people. When you think about it, 50 years from now, at the next Earth Day, the 100th anniversary of Earth Day, you guys will be around, hopefully. And unfortunately, my generation has left a lot of the hard work of climate change to young people. There's a long way to go and a short time to get there. So having Shippensburg University's commitment, and for the period of time that students are there, for them to learn and gain skills and knowledge that will really enable them to be leaders in climate change. So whatever job they pursue, wherever their life takes them career-wise, they can be engaged civic partner. They can be involved citizens in terms of their actions, in terms of their voting. They can make a difference whether they go to a corporation, to a nonprofit, or to government. But it's definitely young people that are going to lead the way, as it always was with all things related to the earth. So I think the timing is just perfect, and I'm really glad Shippensburg chose the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. You may not realize this right now, but you'll remember where you were and what you did on this Earth Day. I can remember where I was on the first Earth Day. I was a young junior high school student, but I had a good teacher who understood the value of it, and it was formative to me and really set the course for me to eventually become a Shippensburg student in biology. So it's an important milestone. You'll remember it. I'm glad that Shippensburg created this opportunity to make the announcement to make it more memorable.
Thank you. President Carter, is there anything you'd like to add about the leadership and getting others engaged?
Well, I think Secretary Dunn hit the nail on the head. We all have to take leadership. This is not something that folks should be looking to others to do. And the fact that so many young people are engaged in this effort means that it is an effort that will continue to make a difference. And you can do it in small ways. You know, the dining folks on campus were probably super annoyed with me because I started with the plastic straws. My son is a marine science major, and his passion is really around the human impact on water in the environment. And so his crusade on plastic straws really sort of hit me. And you can take leadership in your own homes. When he was 10, he started charging us if we threw the wrong thing in the recycling bin. So take responsibility in any way you can to make sure that we are leaving the world a better place than the world we inhabit. Because right now we're in a situation where we just have to do better. On campus, we have been looking into solar energy as a way to help us reduce our carbon footprint. But now that we've signed this commitment, we have to look into those things and do it much more aggressively. So you can do it in big ways or you can do it in small ways, but everyone can play a part in the effort.
Thank you. And we do have a few questions coming in about the specifics of the agreement and what exactly does the climate commitment entail, especially on campus, and what changes we might see and what SU is committing to in signing this agreement. And maybe Russ can chime in on that.
Sure. So there are two main parts of the commitment that we're making with this climate leadership commitment. The first is for our operations and our university culture, and the second is for our community partnerships to help make our region more resilient to climate change. So on our campus, we are committing to formally beginning, as Dr. President Carter noted, we were already working toward building sustainable operations at Shippensburg, but we're committing now specifically to develop a plan and institute it to make our operations carbon neutral, which means that we will be setting a target date in the future whereby we are at parity with the amount of greenhouse gases that our operations are putting into the atmosphere and the greenhouse gases that are coming out of the atmosphere. So we will be investing in renewable technologies for our energy, whether it's generated it on campus or purchasing it from a renewable provider. We'll be changing our campus landscaping to sequester carbon out of the atmosphere so that we're cutting away from our emissions in that way. We'll be introducing efficient technologies in our buildings to reduce our energy use. And most importantly, I think, we will all be working together as a campus community to change our behavior. And that's from the faculty member, from the administration, to each student, to each staff member, to all do our part to reduce emissions in our own way. Dr. Carter, I thought that was such a wonderful way that you said that we can all work in our own ways to help with this commitment. Now, the second piece, and Claire, I'll pass over to you to talk a little bit more, and Katie to talk a little bit more about the community partnership. But we're committing to using our expertise and our passion among our student body to help our communities identify ways in which they're vulnerable to the threats of climate change in our region, and to help them develop plans to become more resilient to that, to not let those changes harm them. And so we'll be partnering with the South Mountain Partnership and with DCNR and the Michaud to make our region more resilient to climate change as well.
Yeah, thanks, Russ. So as Russ pointed out, we have these two pieces, and we have the on-campus piece and we have the community piece. And the clues has been working for several years now with a variety of community partners. And in fact, the university itself has been a part of the South Mountain Partnership since it began. So we have a long-standing relationship with the South Mountain Partnership and with DCNR. One of the first initiatives that we'll be starting in terms of the community component of it is we will be launching a campus community task force. So we'll be working with Katie and working with Roy Brubaker, who's the district forester that you saw in the video, to convene folks from around the region to essentially help to identify the pieces of community resilience that the community prioritizes. So this community piece is meant to be community driven, and I think it's a couple of points to note. In terms of Michaud State Forest, we've mentioned that a few times. Michaud is really like the green heart of the South Mountain region. It is where we have our largest carbon sink. It's where the headwaters of many of our streams and rivers originate. So having the Michaud State Forest as a key part of community climate resilience is really important. And on the Michaud itself, they are seeing the effects of climate change, even through things like road and trail washouts because of increased rainfall events. So there's adaptation that needs to happen on the Michaud itself, and there's adaptation and mitigation that needs to happen in partnership with the Michaud to help benefit the broader community. The second piece of it that I think the CLUS brings to the table, and I saw a couple of questions about this, is the interdisciplinary nature of sustainability challenges. So, you know, Russ and I are from the Geography Earth Science Department. We deal a lot with environmental sciences and scientists, but we also have folks from history and from art and social work and sociology and political science. And we need all of those disciplines, all of those minds to help us reach this goal. I know Russ often says in his class that sustainability is a wicked problem because it's got roots everywhere, and all of us have expertise to contribute to this issue. So I will say that as we move into the community piece of it and the forming of the campus community task force, that is certainly a way that alumni can get involved, that professionals can get involved, that local leaders can get involved. And I'll stop talking and turn it over to Katie now, but thank you.
Thank you, Claire. That's a great introduction. And so on our part, where I feel like we fit into all of this as the conservation landscape in Adams, Cumberland, Franklin, and York counties, is that we have a lot of connections with the boots on the ground, those clean environment advocates, and those aligned with those organizations, as well as, you know, connections with the broader community, the healthcare community, the recreation, agricultural community, the historic preservation community. And that is how we like to do business as well, and sort of tease out that wicked problem. And with my background in landscape architecture and environmental science and policy, I am keenly aware that good planning is always rooted in meeting people where they are. And that means engaging and listening to how the problem you want to solve or assist in figuring out a solution really depends on how they see it culturally, how it's affecting them, and that's really where you start. And so I believe that that is our core responsibility as the conservation landscape in this region, is to use our existing partnerships and our outreach to have that conversation that then informs this higher level understanding approach to to whatever action plan is identified by those partners seems to work, you know, along with the higher level municipal or county partners that we can pull in, and then start moving forward with implementing the actions. And I just want to put in a little plug. This is why the DCNR Conservation Landscape Program is so great. We have this sort of like mediating role in the region because we were meant to exist for that reason. You know, we see ourselves very much as a facilitator and a convener of the community, so that we can help support them to be catalysts. And one thing I jotted down as I was listening to others is that I loved the comment about, you know, not waiting, getting engaged now. And I've been fortunate enough to go through leadership coaching over the past year, and something just sprang to mind that I would hear my coach telling me, and that is, give yourself the authority to take the action where you can now. Don't wait. There are so many opportunities for you to raise your voice, to be heard, to reach out, to build upon what those who are currently doing work have already built. And so just be part of keeping that momentum moving.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm seeing a few questions come in about previous efforts that have been done in the region, whether it's a question about research or about you know, initiatives on campus. And so I wanted to ask maybe Russ and Claire, if maybe you can speak about student opportunities through this agreement and what you see as a way for students to get involved.
Sure. So I can speak to a couple of past things that we've done on our campus to make our operations more sustainable, which have had a big impact on our carbon emissions, and also some things that other institutions in the region have done, institutions of higher ed specifically, and some things that are happening at the state level. So a couple of years ago, we decommissioned our coal-fired power plant, which was generating all of the power that we used to heat our buildings. We purchased our electricity, which most institutions do, but we were generating power in other ways. We decommissioned that coal-fired power plant and switched to a natural gas water chiller plant, which actually reduced our carbon footprint. From the before and after picture was a decrease in almost 30% of our carbon emissions just from that effort, which was really remarkable. And we're working on other initiatives like that, including putting lights on timers and developing master controls for all of the buildings so that we can really efficiently dial in on not just electricity usage, but heating and cooling. And we've seen initiatives like that at other institutions, at Gettysburg College, at Dickinson College, at Millersville, at Westchester, which are other sister campuses in the PASHE system, have been doing similar things as well. And including Dickinson, if anyone's driven through Carlisle and you see those big solar fields, Dickinson is invested in land that they already had, building solar arrays to generate electricity for their campus there. They're on multiple sides of the borough of Carlisle there. And so these are things that we'll be looking into as well, both on we have students doing research on this right now, actually. A student that I've been working with has been actively examining the feasibility of creating micro power grids on campus and building canopy solar generation over our commuter parking lots, which would be such a great way to use that space. Students have to be able to drive to campus, but why not reduce our carbon footprint while we're doing it and generate electricity sustainably for the campus? And so we also have students who are doing research on composting and waste streaming, which also, you may not realize, has a huge impact on our carbon footprint, because decomposing trash or anaerobically digesting trash, I guess you would say, in a landfill produces methane. Decomposing organic matter produces carbon dioxide, which contributes to climate change. And so the better to manage that, the greater we can serve our commitments to the environment and to climate change.
And we do have a question about these renewable methods and whether that leads to a change in the quality of services or a change in the price of services. And can you expand on that before we move to Claire?
Sure. Does it change the quality of services? No, it doesn't. I can definitively say that. Electricity is electricity. And we have technologies now, and I say this to my students all the time, we have the technology now to generate all or almost all of our electricity in almost every part of the world from renewable technologies. What we need is the will to commit to doing it. And that's why making a leadership commitment like this is so wonderful, because we're saying, you know what, we're going to do it. And so it won't change the quality of your services. The price question is a little more complicated. Right now, the way that it's looking, probably not that much, not in a noticeable way, in terms of purchasing power from a renewable source versus a dirty source, a fossil fuel source. And it's projected in the future to become much cheaper, actually. Once you build scale with production, it's projected the cost per kilowatt hour, I don't want to nerd out on people too much, but the cost per kilowatt hour is projected to be the lowest, even lower than natural gas. And some of that will depend on leadership from the state and from the federal government in terms of how we regulate power and tax power. But regardless, it looks like we're heading in a direction where it'll actually be cheaper. And I want to say that Governor Wolf is, I think, doing a really excellent job of providing leadership in that direction as well at the state level.
I just want to weigh in here. As I mentioned when I spoke a little earlier, we have for several months now been in discussions with some folks about solar energy on campus, and starting that as a pilot program to make sure that costs are in line with budget and things of that sort. But this is something that pre-signing the commitment, we have been really trying to work on. And the idea is to find a partner who will work with us so that the cost is not something that is adding to the financial challenges of the university. And there are opportunities out there for us to do that. We can't do it all at once, but we can certainly do it incrementally. And we are working towards that goal and have been for quite some time. Had COVID-19 not hit, I was hoping to be able to make an announcement today, but we're a little behind schedule, but that doesn't mean we're giving up.
Great, thank you. There were a few questions about how sustainable we believe our region currently is, and also whether there have been efforts to monitor climate change impacts throughout the region. So I don't know if that's something that Cindy and Katie feel comfortable speaking on.
Yeah, I'll just take a crack at it. When you think about, and I think it was Claire that said, the South Mountain is a refugia. It's a cool, natural place in our region. And you think about it, it's got clean water, it's got cooler temperatures, noticeably cooler temperatures, by the way. If you haven't, try driving up from campus someday to Michaud, or better yet, bike up if you want to be green. But you'll notice the cooler temperature. So you think about that spot's sustainable, but then you get on the 81 quarter, and there's all these new truck warehouses, and there's all the pavement. That's hot, and that's got runoff, etc. So what's it take to make it more sustainable? Think about extending the forest land of the Michaud right down into the Cumberland Valley. And Shippensburg has been involved with planting trees. Numerous projects have also tried to think about that cool, clean water coming off of South Mountain and extending a forested buffer along that stream. Think about work to reforest parts of the valley that could be reforested. There's some active and important farmland. Of course, we want to keep it in producing food, but there are many other places that could be reforested, and that sequesters carbon and also cleans up runoff. Thinking about transportation systems in the region, and right now, there's not a lot of alternative transportation, but we're seeing, communities like Carlisle put in, bike lanes and put themselves on a road diet. There's the Cumberland Valley Rail Trail, which of course comes right onto campus and will someday connect all the way to Carlisle. There's opportunities to buy local, for food sources, which again, your eating habits have a carbon footprint, and choosing local food and choosing, as the president said, choosing non-plastic, non-petrochemical alternatives for your materials, packaging and such for food. So there's lots of ways to make the region more sustainable. I think the Cluse is really with a partnership in the South Mountain. We've got business partners who are really engaged, and I think there's a lot that can be done to make the region more sustainable. It's got a lot of major good pieces that are sustainable, and again, the more we build on these and expand them, and then really work to ameliorate the impacts of the development, is going to be very important.
Couldn't agree more. I was jotting some things down as Secretary Dunn was speaking, and I agree. We have a fantastic natural resource infrastructure here that inherently makes us sustainable. There are very few regions left in the United States in which you can eat locally year-round and get everything that you need. We are one of those very unique spots left, especially on the East Coast with our small family farms still. So we have a lot going for us. We have the Central Pennsylvania Clean Air Board doing air monitoring. We have Central Pennsylvania Conservancy and the Land Conservancy of Adams County doing farmland and forest land preservation work. We have local watershed associations, Dickinson College's alarm program, and other clean water advocates doing water quality monitoring. And our counties, I believe each one of our counties have a conservation and greenways plan. And let's not forget that we have the Appalachian Trail Corridor, which is more than just a trail, but an actual greenway or a green corridor running through the heart of this region. We have a lot of things to capitalize on. The question is, can we keep them? And can we implement the conservation plans that we have on the books? It's always about moving toward the implementation of conservation. It doesn't happen on purpose because, how do I say this? Because the forces that convert land or change land typically convert it away from its natural state or away from serving an ecological function or a clean resource function toward conversion for manufacturing, transportation, and things like that. And I'm not saying that should not happen. We obviously need that to happen. However, we need to prioritize that in places where there isn't prime farmland, in places where it won't affect our water quality, and in ways where it won't affect or degrade our air quality, our scenic view sheds, and the things that people come to visit us and come here to live are attracted by. So, I said before, and I will repeat myself here, we're on the fence. Currently we're very sustainable, but time will tell.
Well, thank you all. We still have a few questions that are coming in, but I know that with time, we need to start wrapping up. And so I think that we can end our Q&A portion just with this question about what can we personally do as students on campus, but also just as members of the community, whether it's the alumni or any other member of our community, what can we do to help reduce our impact on the earth? And or how can people be involved in this commitment?
I'll just jump in. when I was a student, I don't think I understood how wonderful it was to be in a phase of my life where my job was to learn. And so I would say take full advantage of that period of your life where your job is to learn. And the first step of anything for the earth is to learn about it. Take this opportunity during the COVID crisis to spend a little time learning more about nature and engaging more deeply. Take time to do a little more reading and get outside and really explore nature and learn as much as you can, because it's a great time of your life and you may not have the luxury of having your agenda be to learn again in your future. So enjoy it and explore it deeply.
And for those of you who are on campus or alumni who want to engage in this effort, as I said, we are looking for good partners to help us be better stewards of our environment. So get involved. I have often had students ask me, well, what is the administration doing? Well, it's not just the administration that needs to be doing something. We all need to be engaged. How we are contributing is going to contribute to the greater good. So please, everyone, get involved. Don't wait for someone else to do something. Don't look for someone else to do something. Do what you can. Contribute in positive ways to the effort. And if we're all working towards the same goal, working together and supporting one another in the effort, we will be much more successful.
I'll try to round that out with just a few things. How can we get involved as students? I want to echo or repeat again what I said earlier. Give yourself the authority to step up in ways that might, cause a little hesitation. If you're going after a goal or serving your community or serving sustainability in a way that makes your heart beat a little bit fast, that's probably, the right thing for you to take on, and you're stepping into a new role. And so as a student, that's always important to keep, raising the bar a little bit higher for yourself and getting more engaged with your community. Volunteer with a Friends of a State Park or Friends of the State Forest. Volunteer with a Watershed Association, the Clean Air Board. Come to a South Mountain Partnership meeting. We hold spring and fall meetings and a big annual celebration with over 125 attendees. And it's just a great way to get together with, people who care about similar things that are similar to, to you, from places and from organizations that you wouldn't otherwise, meet. And so there are opportunities for that networking. But lastly, I want to go back to what I said about, land conversion and how we do things. This is run on a policy level. We need to understand, civics and policy, and each and every one of you students, after you get out, you should get involved in, or at least consider getting involved in your local municipality, wherever you end up. Hopefully, at least some of you are staying here in this beautiful landscape behind me, which is also my homeland landscape. But serve on municipal commissions and boards. You have just as much to contribute as anyone who is already there.
All right, I will hand it over to Russ in just a second for a wrap up. But if you're interested in learning more about what you can do, I encourage you to check out the Shippensburg University social media, their YouTube channel, the Center for Land Use and Sustainability social media, and our YouTube channel. All week we've been posting, and we'll continue to post all week, just little snippets of what we're doing in our own house, at our own place, to contribute to sustainability. So please check those out, and also feel free to share your own ideas or activities that you've been doing this week. And if you're a student and you want to get involved, as you've heard, there's a lot of challenges, which means a lot of work, a lot of research questions. And Russ mentioned this, but the Center for Land Use and Sustainability does support a lot of student research in this area, applied student research. So we invite you to engage with us at any time. So Russ, I'm going to hand it over to you to wrap up. Great.
So I will wrap up and answer that question at the same time, because I think it's a really apt way to wrap up our webinar here. If you're a student at Shippensburg, in addition to the research opportunities and the learning opportunities, we have student clubs that are focused on the environment. The Green League is a really wonderful club with really students who are committed to the environment in many different ways. So look for ways to get involved socially, extracurricularly at the university. There's lots of them. We will be forming, as Claire noted, the campus community task force. And we want students to be involved in that task force. We have an environmental steering committee on campus, and we want students to be involved in that. So if you're curious about what you can do on campus, look for those things. Now, for all of us, for students, for faculty, for alumni, for anybody else who's listening, what can you do? You can be hopeful. And you cannot let a problem that is massive, like global climate change, make you feel like you have no power to do anything, because it's simply not true. It's simply not true. This world, including these problems, are things that we've created, and that's scary, but it's also very liberating, because if we created them, that means that we can solve them. It's something that we did, and we can undo it, right? We can go back and we can work toward making a better future. So when you catch yourself thinking, there's nothing I can do about that. I ask my students about specific environmental problems all the time, and many times in class, they'll say, well, this will probably never happen, but maybe we could, ... And I always say, wait, rewrite that answer. Don't say this could never happen. You're a college student. You're an alumni. Go make it happen. And don't believe that it won't happen. You might not see the final conclusion, but that doesn't mean that your work won't be positive. So stay positive, stay hopeful, and join us. This event is the first of many opportunities to participate in being a leader for climate change. So thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing all of you, both virtually and in person, as we continue this work in the future.
Thank you, Russ, and thank you to all of our panelists. We're grateful that you were able to be here today, and thank you for signing on to this commitment. Everybody stay safe, and thank you so much for joining us.